Beth, can you tilt your laptop down a little bit? No, I can't. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll wing it. Just yell what, and I'll type.
Okay.
Zoom, can you see us all? And can I
Yep.
hear? Mark?
Yep.
Probably,
I'm here.
and John? John? Can you hear us?
You're on mute.
There you go.
Okay.
Great. And in the room is myself, Mary, Beth, Julie, Lisa, Doug, Ron, and Andy. So we're gonna get started. Did everybody see the minutes today? Review them. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so if you'd like to approve those.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Beth?
Hi.
Julie? Hi. Lisa? Hi. Hi. Prabhu?
Aye.
John? John, you're on mute. John? Yeah.
Oh, he dropped off. You yelled too loud.
Right, he's on. Very on. Bill, ready?
Yes, bills, we have, as I said in my email, we have 3. We've got one for Amazon for purchasing a switch, some controllers, some games, etc. The total for that is $673.40.
I make a motion that we pay the Amazon bill for $673.40. I'll second. Okay, roll call Beth.
Hi.
Julie. Aye. Lisa. Aye. Doug. Aye. Problem?
Aye.
John? John, you're on mute. Carrie.
All right, next one is for DA Sullivan for the last 90 days, in the amount of $1,350.
I make a motion to pay DA Sullivan the amount of $1,350. We'll call Beth.
Hi.
Aye. Aye. Doug. Aye. Prabhu.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Mary. Aye. Mary.
All right, and next one I have is for Mass Corrections for the bench cushions. This is for $2,887.29.
I have a question, but I'll make a motion that we pay Mass Core in the amount of $2,887.29. I'll second. Is this the last one from them?
From Mass Corp?
Yeah.
It should be, yeah. I mean, we paid for, we had to pay for the fabric, for the Velcro, there's something else, and then this.
And then this one, we're done. Awesome, thank you.
My question is, if the corrections get made,
Not, they may be in process. I don't have all of this.
okay,
Nor do I have a timeline as to when.
okay.
So this doesn't finish up all this.
I'm asking, are they billing for work that they haven't completed and handed over to?
Yeah.
Traditionally, we pay upon receipt of goods or services. So I'm still missing some questions that they're correct.
But that's part of the contract, correct? No, that's what I'm asking, right? Is that part of the contract?
Fixed service.
Yes, they
Okay.
should, yes.
All right, I will call back.
Hi.
Prabhu,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Aye.
And then the last one I was just gonna mention, I think I did an email, was Weston and Sampson, our licensed site professional. I had a balance of 97.69 left, and they sent us a bill for 13,000 something. So I just asked them to go back and give me their version of everything they've billed us today. So I can just kind of sync that up. So once I get that, I'll bring that to the next.
That's okay, like it won't be, because we're not meeting for 30 days. Okay.
Right. Yep.
And
that's-
I should note too, regarding the invoices, we don't have one this month from CTA. If you remember last month, there was a retainage reduction, and then you go from there to a monetized punch list. But during all of that, we lost the prime project manager, the assistant project manager. And so an executive PM took over, and he's been doing, I think, Ron will say, as good of a job as he can in these circumstances. But we just got today an updated punch list, which obviously doesn't give DRA enough time to back punch, to check what's done and what's not done, and then to monetize that punch list, and then for them to bill against it. So there's a lag. I'll talk to Paul. I don't know. He knew of tonight's meeting, and he knew that if you wanted to get a pay app in, it would be approved at tonight's meeting. So he may just be skipping November in an effort to close it all out this month, or he may say in 10 days time, Ron's office may have been able to do the back punch, and we could come up with a monetized amount that everybody's in agreement to. And then there might be a call for an email approval or something. But right now, tonight, we don't have an invoice, and that's why.
That's okay. Well, I got I have some other stuff on the cost report I did want to mention.
Oh, great, okay.
So if you want to do that.
Yeah.
So just a note, I think I said, so under, I've got a separate spreadsheet for fixed furniture, fixture and equipment, and another one for IT purchases. If you look at those two, we're about $2,000 over our IT budget, and we're about 21,000 underneath our FF&E budget. Some of the items that are on those two lists could have been on either list. Like there's some things that could. So if you look, you have to kind of look at the two things together. So if you do that, we're still 19,000 to the good for those two sort of significant line items. So I just think, I know Evan has asked, where are we with some of this stuff? He has this now. He just wanted to know, like, where are we in terms of purchasing, just to know what we've got left. And I did ask Mary in accounting to go through the back part of the project too, just to see if there's anything related to the borrowed money or anything like that that would come through to her that doesn't come directly to me, just to make sure that there aren't other expenses that have hit the project that I don't know about. So I haven't heard back from her yet, but I'll talk to her probably tomorrow and certainly before these bills go in. So again, overall, just in terms of the projected cost for the project, the projected cost really hasn't changed. Hasn't really changed. I mean, we're a little bit over on IT, but we're still well under on FF&E. So, where we are is where we are. The summary really hasn't changed at all.
I think just following up on that, what's going to happen is first there was the kind of the push to get the library open, and now that's happened. And now punch list work is being done while the library is being occupied. But while it's being occupied, the staff are finding things that they want, whether it's maybe it's an FF&E type of item, or it's a work-related item. They need more outlets or something like that. And so while this is happening, the punch list is being updated. We're going to end up with a list of items that CTA will agree that are contract related. They'll address those. And then we're going to have a list of things that, for whatever reason, are outside the contract. And then I think the committee is going to have to prioritize those things, whether it's a program issue that the staff really needs something to function properly, or if it's a Friends of the Library issue where it would be nice to have, but it's not needed, but wouldn't it be great type of thing. And then we'd have to revisit Andy's spreadsheet to determine where the funds are going to come to process those changes, because we're right up against it at this point.
And maybe the money from FFE, goes towards an outlet or something that wasn't being talked about.
It's all funded money. Nothing's been specifically earmarked.
At the end of the day, buy down to zero.
We still have significant things we haven't purchased, like the hanging rail system, office shelving, bullet boards.
Okay, so
And
that's,
I know that I need 2 more desktops.
that's
so,
why we have
yeah.
money in FFE.
Yes, because I haven't spent it yet. We have more stuff.
Got it.
We're going.
Well, no, some of that stuff wasn't budgeted,
Oh,
so.
Well,
Well, that's the thing, if it wasn't budgeted, you can't really spend it. I mean, unless we knock something off.
Correct.
where does the money come from?
We have what we have.
Can I ask a question? Andy, can you hear me?
Yes.
So when we talk in terms of your job cost report, is that against the original budgeted, estimated, approved and budgeted amount? The reason I ask that question is when you talk in terms of punch list, I know you explained that it could fall under multiple buckets. What you are able to project now, does that even include items from the punch list, which may not have been as part of the original approved scope?
So punch list is part of the project, so that's not cost that we would bear.
Right. So what's happened is in some of the, staff may not know what's contract, what isn't. They just know they need an outlet, next to their desk. I'm making this up. And so if we look at the contract documents and it shows there's supposed to be an outlet there, then that's a punch list item. If the documents don't show an outlet there, but it is something that's, functionally is required, then that goes out of the punch list and over to the side to be done punch list, but outside of the contract. And that's the list I'm talking about. We're going to end up with a number of those items and only a certain number of funding to apply to those items. And so we're going to have to prioritize and figure out which need to be done and which could be fundraised for or something like that.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ben. Sorry, my question was, when you say punch list, I thought, Andy, to your point, punch list is part of the contract. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And Mark, your clarification was the staff may not necessarily know what's there in the contract or what should be in the punch list or not. That is still to be, some of those items might be TBD.
Correct.
But
So
if it is in the punch list, it is in the contract.
Right. We had an initial punch list from DRA, but then the staff moved in and the library opened. And so additional items have been added to that list, some of which may or may not be contractual items. So we just have to weed through those. CTA will be responsible for what is in the contract, and then what it's outside of the contract, the committee will have to decide on.
Okay. Thank you.
So one of the issues that we're coming up with is that the floor plan shows a computer in a location. And then when you go to that physical location, there either isn't power or data. So is that punch list or not? Because like the electrical drawing didn't have it, but the plans that we had to plan the building show a service desk. And we did move some service desks around. Like we're finding we can't plug in the children's room public access computers because in the brass floor plate, there's 2 electrical outlets and no internet drops. They just were left out. So reference librarian's desk has been across the room because there's no power at the location near my office where it was supposed to live on the drawing. Depends on the computer. Ideally, we want them hooked up fast speed, stable internet connection.
That would be, that's something, we have this come up in the construction meeting, so that's something we have to go through the drawings
Yeah.
and find out,
I did it.
did it get dropped? Does it not explain, to the engineer? So it's undetermined.
Yeah.
It may fall into punch list, it may fall into something else.
Generally speaking, the answer to your question is that you have to go by the electrical drawings or the drawings for electrical. You don't go by the furniture.
Anybody else have questions?
Is a copy of the punch list available for free? For reference? We know, sorry, not, the items that aren't paid for.
Received today a copy of the punch list items that ETA believes are ready to be checked as complete. That's where we step in and hold it back. To verify that what they're saying is actually, so there's that list was provided. They also provided a 67 item list of punch list items that are yet to be completed. A lot of those are, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mark, but a lot of those have to do with the, I can't remember the term, but the, CF stands for commissioning, right? But the commissioning of the items that are still being verified.
So Doug, there is a separate list, or maybe more than one list, I'm not sure, of wish list items. So things that Deborah asked for, the staff has noticed, et cetera, that are probably not really punch list items, they're really wish lists, they're a separate thing. So that's what Mark was talking about before, and those really need to get prioritized and priced so we can understand where we are.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I was thinking in terms of the next pay application, at which point we have to look, they have to give us a value of the work that is punch list that has yet to be completed, so that we can weigh that against what they're classing for. So that we're not paying for
The list that CTA sent out today, outside of the commissioning items, was basically a list of items that they have now completed that hasn't been back punched yet, that is now ready for back punch, but it's not, it doesn't list. So that's great. They've got a number of items that they think are done, but it didn't give the list of what remains to be done. And so we're looking for that list as well. And then on top of that, we have a staff generated list, which has been kind of commingled along the way. And so we're trying to get, again, all the contractual stuff verified, completed, closed, and then left with everything that we collectively agree is not part of the contract. And then just that makes the discussion easier. So, and we're much further now than we were, certainly a month ago, 6 weeks ago, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay, so for this committee, we'll need that list.
I didn't hear you, Mary.
So we'll need that other list that.
Yes.
For this committee, we'll need the other list.
Yes, it's, it's great that they did 50 items, but how many items are left? Because the list hasn't been a finite list. It's been growing, over the past month. It's not like we get 10 new items every day, but we might get 10 items during a week or during 2 weeks. So there's more items that have been added, several items have come off. And so we just need, what's done and what's left. And so I asked, when I got the update this morning from Paul, that was my first question to him was, okay, that's great. Can you give us the master list of what's left?
I'm only calling it a wish list, just to distinguish between some.
Yeah. And you can either, there's not on
They do sign the checks.
Yeah.
But one of the things you notice is that the children's room is very packed. So we really need more shelving than we budgeted for and planned for. So we're waiting for a quote from Tucker to go to the capital campaign. It's like, yeah, we thought we'd have a little more time before we needed quote, but we're packed. A lot of trucks.
I'm assuming like those, the outlets aren't gonna exist, the Ethernet drops aren't, I mean, that's a big change, right? You gotta open up walls or, it does seem like those.
Sense, but yeah, some of them are gonna be harder than others. Right?
I mean, if there's a floor box there and an outlet, but not a data outlet, then it's illegal. Now, if there's nothing.
Well,
We can go.
Yeah.
Question if there's a conduit left in the box,
Yeah.
the wires.
The Wi-Fi speed is 250 meg.
That's good.
That's pretty good for Wi-Fi.
And it's not password. It's not password protected anymore, so you could, come in, get a password, get outside the building. 24/7.
Neighbors
That's-
can drill.
Yeah. So.
Mark?
Yep. Well, as you know, I think we weren't open the last time we met, I don't think. And so the push, we went to weekly meetings, we had been meeting bi-weekly job meetings, went to weekly meetings to kind of ramp things up. Evan was instrumental in getting things done on the town side of things, whether it was IT related or just general kind of filling in the big hole that we had when Andy left. And so Evan was great filling in that gap. And so now the library's open, and the last couple of job meetings have been 45 minutes. And as we mentioned during those meetings, there's not a lot of decision making at this point. It's mostly, the discussions are mostly, is this item done? Or if it's not done, when will it be done? And so there's just a list now of things that we're trying to go through. And it's not a big, what are we going to do about this problem, or how do we solve that issue? It's more punch list focused. The two biggest physical punch list items were the staff shower, which had to be, the orientation was wrong. And I think the plumber, and I think CTA confirmed this, they were just hoping the issue would go away because it was going to be a pain to fix. Of course, it didn't go away. And ultimately, it was one of those things, I think it became bigger than it really was. A couple days, they had everything spun around, and now the bulk of the work is done. They've got to patch the shower, but we've got that one on the run. The other one is the ADA lowering of the countertops, which CTA and DRA are working on with the millwork supplier to get that item done. Again, the library is open, but that's obviously an item that's kind of the elephant in the room, is that's the big one that we have to fix. Outside that, Paul from CTA has again, he's coming in. It's a tough spot. It doesn't excuse them, but it's a tough spot to come in at the very, very end of the project and not know, not really have a set of instructions or working list of what he needs to do. So he's trying to find out what sub is doing what, who's responsible for what. But he's jumped in, and he's dedicated a recent hire to all things punch list related. And the communication seems, Beth, you can jump in, seems pretty good between, like he would call Beth, hey, these people are coming Thursday morning, is that okay? And if it's not, they plan accordingly. And the work's getting done, and we're knocking things off the list. So the meetings are getting shorter, which is a good sign. The punch list we know is getting shorter, which is a good sign. And the building is open, and it's been, from all accounts, it's been well received by the public, very well received, as it should be. It's a beautiful building. So now we're just in punch list mode. We're in between that we're in that zone between substantial completion and final completion. It's certainly in CTA's best interest to get out as quickly as they can. And all efforts are put toward that. And I told Paul, as far as money's being withheld and so forth, that we have to do our due diligence and make sure we hold back enough so that if, for example, CTA just walked away, we'd have enough money to complete whatever items are left. But at this point, the two biggest issues are the ADA dropping of the counters and the commissioning related items, which are going back and forth between the commissioning agent and the engineer trying to clean that up. But it's not preventing use of the building. And, there might be certain areas from a access point of view. Certainly, it's not what we want it to be. But the biggest thing was getting, NBLC wanted the doors open and people in the building, and that's what we've got.
Following up on some of the items Mark mentioned, the drawings for the ADA counters, lowering the desks, lowering the sinks, those have been submitted. We are waiting upon CPA to come back to us with pricing, so that we can get that approved and underway. As I said, DRA will be picking up the items, addressing the items that we're responsible for, if there was a mistake in our drawings or otherwise. But we need to get that pricing from, and a work plan also from CPA as to how they're going to approach it, given that the building is open. That needs to be coordinated with that and the staff so that we minimize the number of interruptions and get the work done as quickly as possible. The satisfaction of the library and also the satisfaction of the town. Speaking of ADA, there was that list of other items that came up. Got quicker, and I saw that the town responded through their ADA consultant, address those issues. The one that we were able to address is the mention of variance, and we had applied and received the variance for the front entrance because the sidewalk was being touched and the building was being renovated. Without a variance, we would have had to redo the front entrance, the east side of the west side of the original building, which would have brought up all sorts of historical issues. So we do have the variance that Scott was looking for, and I submitted another copy of that to Evan and company. So hopefully that will resolve that issue. My main concern forward is with the construction team, making sure we address all of the, I keep looking up, basically things like, the exit signs where we have put in a temporary being addressed. I just want to make sure that we have the construction team stay on top of it and get them addressed. They don't fall through the cracks. And that's something we deal with. Still need a final certificate of occupancy. Right now, we're working on a temporary certificate that allows public access to the building. First temporary certificate allowed workers only, staff only. We were able to get a second one from the town that allowed public entry, so that we could open the building for entry.
What are the things that we need to have done to get that final certificate? Like, are there 3 things or 4 things or 100 things? 4 things, 4 items. And what are those 5?
The handicap accessible exit signs. counters and sinks. The
The
shower,
shower.
even though it's a stack only shower. What's the,
Your favorite one, the button.
oh, the button. Yeah, that beautiful post that we put outside in the vestibule. That is temporary.
Oh, I saw that when I came in.
Yeah.
That's the handicap to open the door?
Yep.
Okay.
Someone, but in the vestibule. Yeah. It's the one in the vestibule, it was positioned over the bench. You couldn't get within 12 inches without knocking somebody out to get to the access button. So post will bring it forward.
So we submitted information to CPA for all of the items that are out, those 4 items that are outstanding, 2 of which we're waiting to get pricing back for. The counters and the actuator. And then we're waiting for delivery schedule on the availability of the extra funds. They have to be manufactured, and there's all sorts of delays, craziness in getting product.
But everyone can safely use the building.
Building
But that's a
safe-
good
yeah,
solution.
the building is safe use.
Yeah.
I mean, in the actuator that's in the vestibule is necessary in that it's a secondary means. The real actuators are in the lobby and outside the building. That actuator in the vestibule is only if someone in a wheelchair is passing into the vestibule, delayed for some reason, and the door closes before they get out or get through the second door. So it's safety building. And they can now reach, because we moved the actuator to a temporary post, they have access to it. There, it does open both doors. I don't remember if one of them is, I think on the way in, the sequence, so the outside door opens first and then the inside door opens a few seconds later. I think going out, they both open.
That was one of the items when the building opened that staff realized. I think the woman who was at the CERT desk right when you come in, and you can vision in the winter when both doors open at the same time, there's going to be a rush of cold air right at her desk. So that was one of the items that was added to the punch list later, and it's just a timing issue for the electrician. They can time the first door to be open for 3 seconds and the second door to be open for 5 or whatever it needs to be. So, but those are things that we didn't really notice prior to the building being occupied.
We learned on Halloween with groups coming in, the doors were actually not staying open long enough. And people were getting whacked by the closing door as they were coming in, and if you support 5 people. I said, "Well, yeah."
Hopefully we won't have 5 wheelchairs.
So is walking families.
Yeah.
Yeah. They wanted to know why there wasn't a sense of it. Realized there was a body and then popped the door back open. And I said, oh, that would have been a lot more money.
Yeah.
We can't do one charity.
Yeah.
Oh, but
Yeah.
they are.
There's no motivation.
They are very, very expensive, and we are getting a lot of people. Even with, right now, the door prop is a little piece of wood, and it's hard for them to open it, and the actuator does not work yet on the outside. So they think we're closed because they can't get the door open easily. So we're watching out for them and opening it.
That outside actually hasn't been
No,
turned on.
Monday, I'm sure Monday that will happen.
I remember it was turned off for
Yep.
programming.
They
Intentionally turned it off. They're supposed to turn it on.
not until we actually have the official training, which is going to be on the 8th.
Okay.
Right. And one thing, so the committee should know, so Ron submitted formal plans to CTA to move that, to make that temporary post a permanent post. And it should be noted, CTA doesn't they don't want to be here any longer than they need to at this point. The job is almost done. They want to finish and wrap up and get out. But we get a sketch from Ron's office. CTA passes it on, in this case, to Griffin Electric, and we get a proposal for $6,000 to replicate that post, which is, it's about 8 inches of wiring across the floor and, 2 feet up the wall, and for $6,000. So, which is just a silly number. So then it just drags the process out. So then we have to go back to CTA and say we object, and they go back to Griffin Electric and say we object, and then we get into this circular discussion, and somewhere along the way we'll find the end. But that's some of these things that they're pricing. I fear that that's the exercise we're going to have to go through.
John? George?
There you go.
Don, do you have anything for us from the Historic District Commission?
I don't know if you're talking to me, but I can barely hear, so I'm just kind of ambling along.
Yes, you're talking to you.
Yes. John,
Yes.
Historic District Commission updates. Do you have any?
The one thing that we're waiting on is the screening. I don't know if it comes back from a designer or what that is, but that at our meeting, I guess last Thursday, we have another meeting tomorrow. There was not an update. So if there is an update that I can bring to them tomorrow, actually Wednesday's meeting, if somebody has an update from the architect or the design team, it's the fabrication team, I'd be happy to bring it to them. But as far as district, we don't have any new information.
We do have an update on the pricing, and I don't know if John, if you saw, or Ron, if you forwarded the sketch that went out to CTA, if John's got that or not, but based on the sketch that Ron's office issued, we've got a proposal from CTA, which is a rough order magnitude, but it's a quote of $49,500 before any markup. So we're talking about a $50,000+ item. And so we asked for initially a rough order magnitude before they got into a detailed estimate, knowing that we're at the end of the project and the budget is tight. If the committee wants to move forward with that, then we'd go back to CTA and say tighten up the numbers, get formal and final quotes. But the quotes are from 1, 2, 3. There are 5 or 6 line items that they've got for a total of, again, $49,500, which is substantial.
Right. I think the district has approved the design long ago. I don't know if it was in the spring or in the summer, but we approved with the design that was.
Okay, so that's what this is. This is based on that design then. I think I know we lost some traction when the PM and the assistant PM left, and then Paul picked it up. He didn't know what we were talking about. And then Ron had to send back, the design, which at that point was months old. So I think we're talking about the same design, but this is the first time we've had a number to put against it.
No?
I'm not sure in terms of the cost that's not a decision that the district would be involved in. It was the design that we were interested in.
Right, it's the same design that was approved and presented to the HGC.
So it would be, this committee, I guess, that would have to discuss the cost.
Yeah, that's right. I was just gonna say, that's the last of it.
It's frustrating to figure out something that looks pretty and hide something ugly when I don't have everything I need for the building.
Yeah, I agree.
However,
I mean,
It is traffic.
it is a lot of work. You know, the screen, it sort of divides up into the ornamental screen is about 30 grand and everything else, all the roof work, there's some structure that has to happen, there's, you know, things like that, that make up the other 20. So, you know, it's not a small thing, really.
You have to do this? Yeah, that was my question. John, do we have to do this for the commission?
Yes, I mean, that's what the commission is saying we want done. I mean, we were completely left out of this whole process for a really important piece, and it's disheartening that it costs so much, and it's disheartening that we were just left out. I mean, I think it was overlooked. It shouldn't have been. And we don't understand that. I'm fairly vocal. I think you know that. And we didn't have an opportunity to say, we don't like the 20-foot air conditioners on the flat roof. You know, that wasn't part of the design. And nobody said along the way, oh, by the way, the air conditioning units are going to be on the roof, and they're not going to be horizontal, but they're going to be vertical. And so they're going to really be visible. And so we had no opportunity to discuss it until they were there. So I don't know if you want a full meeting with the district commission and this committee to have full input from the committee of other people's thoughts, but that's kind of the consensus is this. We're trying to make the best of a bad situation, and we realize it's a difficult fix. You can't hide it. It's just too big. And we don't want the fix to be worse than the problem.
Well, that's my concern, is that we're gonna spend $50,000 and now we're gonna see a big giant screen up there. That really solves the problem?
You're gonna see a screen, but this screen is not a solid object. It's basically a wrought iron railing, so you're still going to see units behind it.
Correct.
I'm just clarifying. You will be units behind the screen.
I think maybe we do have to have a meeting with the historic district to be able to talk it through for $50,000. I was just gonna say the exact opposite. I'm voting no whether we need them or not. Sorry. Yeah, that's where I am. Yeah. John's saying not to do it. Right. So what does that mean? You know, I understand the concern of the committee. However, I don't personally think it's an eyesore, you know, so like I'm unclear as to why our 4 or 5 person committee is that now telling this committee that we need to spend $50,000 when it's a non-issue for many people on this committee.
But we aren't telling you to spend a nickel. Our body was approved by the town, and you're on the common, and anything that takes place in historic structure on the common has to come before us. And if there's problems, then there's going to be problems with Mass Historical as well. And they've given you money. And so that creates you're going to set up a bunch of dominoes if you're not playing by the rules. If you take the money, you follow the rules. I'm sorry that you think the air conditioners look good. We don't. That's our role. Just like the selectmen get to decide certain things, the district commission decides what we feel is appropriate or not. And to introduce those huge structures is something that we don't feel is appropriate on the common. And we've tried to work to find a solution to the problem. Unfortunately, it's at the end of the game, and the cost is exorbitant, and the money is gone for other things. But it still doesn't rectify the situation that the approval for the district was not followed. That we didn't approve this, and that has to be anything you can see from a public way, we get to decide. And we're not trying to be difficult. We're not trying to make it our way or the highway, but we need to be heard. And I think that's a lot of it. We're just not even being heard. And that's my role on this committee, is to try to be that voice to communicate from this committee to them and back and forth to say, this is what's going on. And when I don't know, and I can't communicate those things. And this was just missed. So maybe a committee meeting between these two groups, just to have a further discussion, would be helpful before you make a decision on spending the money.
I agree with you, John. I think that we should all be in the same room and talking about it, and we're all looking at it again to see. Completely understand that what your role is on the commission. 50,000 is a lot of money that we don't have. So we definitely need, if you could go back to the commission and let them know that we have a rough number of 50,000 plus, because it doesn't have any markups to it yet.
Hi, excuse me. I can barely hear whoever was speaking. It's too far and too feeble for me here. Would you mind paraphrasing or summarizing what was just said?
Mary's making a recommendation that the two committees sit down together, and we're also asking if we have a rough estimate of 50,000 for base cost, what could that, total out to for money spent out? We're concerned we don't have money left in the project budget, but Historical District Commission does have oversight. And it's sounding like John is saying that they're feeling left out of the process, which may be legitimate. We're not meeting to say, here's how the roof looks, what do you think? At any point in time, and their sign off, my personal opinion is their sign off on the project was that they would have oversight at some point. So their oversight is they want the HVAC unit screened, and ours is we got a quote and people approved the design, and now it might be an exorbitant cost to make it look pretty. And really just detract from these big structures on the roof, not to hide them.
I think it's just supposed to make their eye focus on the screening rather than the air conditioning. They're still going to be there. So this is just a way to kind of soften it. And again, I agree. I'm not arguing with anybody on the cost. This is not what we wanted. This is not what we asked in terms of spending money. Ideally, we wouldn't even need a screen. But that's not where we are. So we meet Wednesday. I can say that there's concern, financial concerns from this committee, the library committee, that there is no money to pay for that, especially at that cost. And that the library would like to entertain a meeting of the two committees in the very near future to try to discuss this. Does that sound am I hearing correctly what you guys are saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, I'll share that Wednesday.
Stand, yeah, so they can't stand there and see it.
More trees.
It's also gonna be training to.
I mean, that might have to be the thing, as you come up with a plan of a little mini forest there that's going to stay green.
I think we did also talk about some kind of like planting on the roof, right? But yeah, didn't seem viable.
Oh, I mean, just on the ground.
Evergreen, so it's green is coming, right?
But there is a question of how far away, or how close to the building, or how far away from the building you have to be in order to see those documents. And I do have
This was noticed by a member who lives on South Street, and coming up South Street immediately was like, boom, as soon as you pass the Baptist church, you see it. So again, I'm not saying you see it everywhere on the common. That's not the argument. It's that if you're coming, I guess, north on South Street and you look right to the library as you pass the Baptist church, you see it for a good bit. So I think our goal is to try to minimize the negative impact, because we're stuck with it. We can't get what the air conditioners are there to stay. So we're trying to come up with a reasonable alternative so that it's not a defining feature of that view shed of the library. Just these air conditioning units on the roof.
And if we have no money in this budget, then we just have to.
So Doug is saying if we don't have the money in this budget, it's a warrant article at a future town meeting. I personally don't want to entertain. We just asked for and got the $16.6 million to build the new library. People aren't going to see, oh, they spent a lot of that on soil remediation. They're going to see, they're asking for more money. Why didn't you do that? But you know, that's how that will go down poorly.
I personally spend a lot of time driving around this town going between all the schools, and that happens to be my route to come up South Street to the common, and I've not yet noticed it. So I'm looking forward to the meeting.
Different lens.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, we're looking with the historical lens, so that's very different from somebody just driving down the street that's not looking for, because that's our charge is to protect the common, and that's we're doing the very best that we can. We can't. It's not a museum. It's not meant to be. It's growing. It's evolving. It's changing. It's breathing. So we're glad the library has expanded. We're glad the library has worked with us on the plans so far. We're just trying to make the best we can out of the situation, the cards that we've been dealt right now. So.
John, I just want to say, thank you very much. You did a really good job of being a good advocate for the historic district. Yeah. I might not
Appreciate it.
No, and I might not be agreeing, but you stated the case very well, and I understand that. Okay.
I think that's what I'm hoping I'm conveying. It's real hard because I've got the phone up to my ear, and I don't think you want to see the inside of my ear just because I can't hear. But I'm trying to make it as clear as I can, which I am not doing very well, is we're not trying to be difficult. We're trying to work with you. We're trying to make the best of the situation. And I think there's room for compromise if we have, I mean, you know, you can't get blood out of a turnip. If there's no money, there's no money. I don't think any of us are, I think we all understand that. So I think that's why it's important that we have a meeting of the two committees so that everybody can say their piece, and kind of if there are other alternatives that anybody has that are great ideas other than trees, which I think we really need to come with some good ideas about trees that are fast growing and evergreen and may help us short term, that, you know, we just plant on the lawn. But also it's just like, we may just have to live with it.
Does Mass4 or BVT have a metal shop? Is there potential to pull it from the project, to outsource it and do it more cheaply? And then whose job is it to do that?
Right. And we don't want to make it complicated. We don't make it any more difficult. I mean, that's not what we're trying at all. So don't make it any more complicated than, you know, we've had a lot of Boy Scouts could do this and Boy Scouts could do that. And it's like, no, that's not what we're trying to do. So I'll bring that to the meeting on Wednesday and then report back to the committee.
There are laws against putting Boy Scouts on roofs, so.
If people haven't seen the design, you could send that out. It complements the window screens that are at the front of the historic part of the building really well. Yeah.
No, because we really worked hard, and Ron really worked hard to find a solution that satisfied our committee. Because you think I'm tough? I'm a pushover compared to that whole committee, because everybody has a very different viewpoint, and so at least you're just getting one of me. Okay, thanks.
ADA stuff.
I just ask a real quick question. Can you refresh my memory on what the counters that you get lowered? They're the ones that, like the adult computers?
Yeah, so there's a handy sign on every counter that's out of spec to say, we're aware of it, it's in process and it will be fixed. Unless patrons yank them down, which is also happening. But it's the friends counter, it's the hand wash sink counter here, it's the adult computers, it's the teen computer counter, the children's workroom, the circ workroom, the laptop counters outside of the main sex. Yeah.
Yeah.
About 15 locations of sinks and counters. Yeah. Most are labeled, and then there's plans at each service desk in case somebody has a question, and we've come up with accommodations that we can make. If the counter is too high, here's a table. If this sink doesn't work for you, here's a restroom that has an appropriate sink. So we're managing. No patrons have complained.
Good.
Cost update?
Quick update on the clock. So met with Gail Polar. Beth and I did last week. Or was that this week? Last week, I guess. And handed off to Electric Time. They're gonna, the artist who was engaged before is now left. Now they're working with Electric Time, who I've worked with personally myself before. So now I'm working with a Brandy from Electric Time, I guess. And Beth, I don't know if you've seen the final designs that made the short list. Brandy was going to send, I haven't seen those yet. Brandy was going to send them
Yeah.
to me. Then we're going to verify the size of the clock. And basically, I'm oversimplifying, but they're going to mount the clock on the face of the wall, and then behind the wall, which is in a study space. If anything protrudes from the back end, we're going to put an access panel so you can access behind the clock. Or if it sticks out of the wall, we'll block around it or create a false soffit or something with drywall. That's manageable. So basically, the instructions to them are, we'll find a clock that's appropriate, that everybody likes. Just do what you need to do to mount the clock, and then we'll step back and figure out what we need to do on the backside to kind of clean things up. And even in the worst case scenario, it's not going to be, it might be some drywall and paint, but it's not going to be a big deal.
The grand reopening committee needs to reconvene, but we are thinking of either Friday, the 10th of December or the 17th of December. Maybe that should just be a snow date, to have a ceremonial ribbon cutting and dedication, assuming a plaque would be ready by then. We agreed to put 2021 on it, so we want to get it in before the end of the year, without bumping too close into the various end of the year holidays. So that's our tentative date, and then bigger in-person celebrations through the rest of the year, once we have kids and families vaccinated.
Yeah, that was gonna be next.
Yeah, they're gonna do that anyway, but I feel like we need,
To whatever.
right, yeah, so we need to get it done, I think, and just pick a date and do it.
Right, yeah.
Can we get those dates on everyone, like our own calendars?
I was waiting for Dana to convene a meeting, I can give her a
Have any word on when, from CTA on when the design will be ready? Has it been released? I mean, we told them it was 20,
Yeah.
it's just in 2021, but I don't know if technically it's been released.
I just made a note, Ron. I'll follow up with Paul to see what the lead time is on that.
Thank you.
When you talk about other names being on the list, did that ever happen?
In invitation list or at the donor wall?
What was the donor wall? It was like people that were involved in the.
Dedication.
with the
Oh, yeah.
dedication
Yeah.
class.
We had corrections, I believe there was a discussion as to how to deal with people that are on multiple parts of the list. So maybe what we need to do, Mark, is also double check and make sure we have the most current design for it.
I get it. So I'm gonna check this.
Because we did make a motion, we voted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot.
Pretty sure, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, just want to make sure we have the right one. But
We're double checking the donor, the dedication plaque to make sure it has all the names it's supposed to and may or may not be duplicated with the donor wall list.
Right.
Anybody else have any other comments or
Six, 6 p.m. Same deal, hybrid? Hybrid, okay. And then we'll probably have to post for the reopening planning day, right? Because we'll have a quorum. Or is that just a John thing? Yeah.
Oh, we'll have to,
Yeah.
we'll have to figure that out.
Okay.
John, if we all go to the grand reopening and ribbon cutting, do we have to file a public meeting, even if we're not discussing any business and have no agenda?
It's always best.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. It's open meeting law,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
It's just good practice, just in case somebody, because there's always somebody that wants to bust you. So it's better just to file it and then say there was no business discussed. There are no minutes, and that makes the clerk happy and everybody happy. So as long as I know the date, if you can give me the date, I'll post it.
So then that would be December 6th for our meeting, and then January 3rd.
Oh, yeah, so what about for the, that's maybe December 10th? Is that what you're saying? 10th, 17th. Oh, so a Friday and a Friday. Is that gonna be during the day?
I think so.
Okay.
11 a.m.
Too early to start drinking.
No.
It's like 10 o'clock's the perfect time to start. No, 11, I'm sorry, 11 o'clock, perfect time to start drinking. No, I'm kidding.
Because I can't hear very well. The next meeting is
We're
Monday.
drinking at 10
What?
in the morning. We're drinking at 10 in the morning at the ribbon cutting.
I said
Not really.
It's not too early to start drinking.
We're discussing time for a ribbon cutting. I suggested 11 in the morning on a Friday in December. Actually, I have an email from Dana today saying, please check with Mass Board to see if December 10th works. So I will do that.
So that's a potential, not definite, the 10th.
Correct.
And so December 6th is our next meeting. So that's the only thing that's definitive at this time, right?
Correct.
Well, and then we usually do 2 out, so January 3rd would be the next one.
January 3rd.
Yep.
Okay.
So can I make a motion? Can I make a motion at 7:12 to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Hi, Julie. Hi, Lisa. Hi. Prabhu.
So what are we voting on?
To adjourn.
Yes, aye.
John.
Aye.
Mary.